Namaste, Witchlings, and welcome back to the Cauldron. Tonight, we are sharpening our spiritual shears and getting to work. We have spent the last couple of weeks learning the grace of Vairagya, non-attachment, and the alchemy of Parinama, transformation. Now we're putting both into motion. We are moving from the philosophy of letting go to the practice of release. In other words, y'all, we are talking about cord cutting, the sacred art of reclaiming your energy. Now let's be abundantly clear. This is not about hatred or banishment. We are not slamming doors or throwing away any keys. Cord cutting is not an act of vengeance. It is an act of self-respect, of energetic hygiene, of deep parinama. It's like pruning a beloved plant. You're not destroying it. You are clearing away what no longer blooms so that the new growth can survive. It's how we remind ourselves that our energy is sacred and not a renewable resource for everyone else in the world to drain. Now, every time you pour your time, energy, heart, or energy into someone or something, a person, a memory, a belief, you create a connection, a luminous thread, an energetic umbilical cord. I love that one. And that's the nature of being human. We weave. Some of those cords are life-giving. The one between my husband and me after damn near 14 years together, the cords that run to my kids, Munchkin, Mike, and Spawn, and to my chosen family and my 4, almost 6 grandbabies, because yes, I am counting those twins who are on their way. Those are cords of love. They hum with reciprocity, with laughter, with presence. They don't drain, they nourish. But then there are the other cords, the ones that need pruning. The leeching cord. That friend that only calls when the sky is falling. You pour out empathy, they hang up lighter, and you're left feeling fucking hollow. They're not bad. They're just lost and drinking from your well because they don't yet know how to dig their own. The anchor cord. This is the one tied to an old version of you. Maybe it's the one who made a mistake 5-10 years ago. The you that tolerated toxicity a decade ago. Or the small child who still believes they're not enough. That cord doesn't keep you safe anymore. It keeps you small. The controlling cord. Ooh. The one spun by someone who manipulates or gaslights, tugging at your emotions like a puppet string. That's not a connection, that's a fork and tether. And it's pulling you out of alignment with your sacred spiral flow. As a service-connected veteran, I know what it means to be tied to a mission. And I know what it means to wear duty like a second skin. But I also know the work of coming home, of realizing that the things that once saved you can also be the things that drown you if you don't learn to let go. My allergy to sage, one of the things that first sent me down this path, so many years ago. That one taught me that my healing definitely was not going to look like anyone else's. It taught me to know my boundaries and to trust my truth, even when it doesn't fit the mold. The yoga of separation here. Sacred spiral flow, my yoga, isn't a straight path. It's a spiral. A circling in and a circling out, each turn a new layer of truth. Cord cutting is part of that spiral. It's the circling out. think of your asana practice. When you move from warrior 2 into triangle, trikonasana. Bumble over that word at the best of times. When you move from warrior 2 to triangle, you don't cling to the warrior pose. You shift your footing, you extend, and you breathe, and you separate. You don't shame the warrior. You honor it for the strength it gave you. But you still let it go so you can find the expansion waiting in triangle. Logic tracks, right? Cord cutting is that same energetic transition, a sacred exhale, a release that makes room for what's next. We are not victims of the past. We are sovereign beings, my witchlings, the rulers of our own energy. Just like I say in every class and every circle, my body, my choice, all bodies are beautiful. Well, you know what? The same goes for energy. My energy, my choice. Where it flows, who it touches, what it nourishes. So how do you know which cords to cut? This is where reflection begins. When you look into your energetic mirror, your inner scrying pool, ask yourself 3 questions about any person, place, memory, or belief that you suspect might be overstaying its welcome. Does this connection honor my ethical code? Does it align with the truth that kindness is everything and that no one is free while others are oppressed? If this bond pulls you into judgment, cruelty, or self-betrayal, that one's a dead cord. Does this energy flow both ways? Is this a two-way street? Do you walk away feeling nourished, or do you walk away feeling wrung out? If it feels like a siphon instead of a spring, your spirit is sending you a flare. Prune this back. Prune this back. Does this tether me to a past that's already taught its lesson? Because witchling, that lesson's been learned. You don't need to keep beating a dead horse. You don't need to keep rereading that chapter, hoping for a different ending. Knowledge here is power, but wisdom is knowing when to close the book and start a new one. I'm reminded of the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. That's what we're doing here. This right here is scrunchy feminism in action. It's crunchy because it's deeply spiritual, it's full of incense and intention, and it's fierce, rooted in boundaries and truth. But it's scrunchy because it's slightly. So we're still reminding ourselves that this is our home. Cord cutting is the reclamation of your time, your energy, and your worth. It's saying, I get to be the main character in my own goddamn story. Because you know what? You do. It is your story. So, this is something we won't be doing any cord cutting in anger, but in love, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the other soul is to untie their rope from your boat, wish them calm seas, and sail toward your own true north with fair winds and following seas. All right, y'all, we're going to take a nice deep breath because we're about to get deep. So take a deep breath in. Hold it for just a second, and then long and low, exhale, feeling your shoulders just kind of melting down from your ears. Because this is going to get deep, witchlings. We need to get comfortable, and it is now time to clear the way for your next becoming. All right, my witchlings. All right, my witchlings. Let's start with the basics. The energetic anatomy of connection. Energetic cords are those invisible threads that we spin every time our lives touch someone or something else. They're made of attention, emotion, memory, pure life force, prana. Sometimes they shimmer golden, vibrating like harp strings between souls who truly see each other. Other times, they twist into heavy, tangled ropes woven from fear, guilt, or grief, obligation. We form cords constantly, with a shared laugh, a moment of kindness, even through grief. Connection happens faster than we thought, though. Energy doesn't wait for permission, it just flows. You know, when you first meet someone and you just click and you know you're going to be best friends with this person? That's the energy. The beautiful cords that we have. Those are our roots, the living lines of love between parent and child, between true friends, between teacher and student, mentor and mentee. They bend, but they don't break. They are like the mycelial web beneath the forest floor, carrying nourishment and wisdom between the ancient trees. We don't sever these. We feed them. We honor them. But there are some other cords, the ones spun from resentment, fear, obligation, guilt, codependence, the ones that bind instead of bond. These cords turn your precious life force into a currency someone else gets to spend. They pull at your energy until you genuinely forget what peace feels like. You know the feeling, that sudden heaviness when you think about a certain person, the argument that replays in your head while you're in the shower, that memory that still grips your chest even though that story ended years ago. That's not imagination. That right there is a cord tugging, whispering for your attention like a relentless spirit asking to be seen. Frickin' poltergeists. Cutting cords isn't about anger. It isn't about revenge. It isn't about denial. It's not banishment or erasure. This is a sacred release. It is the moment when you look at something and say, you served a purpose for me once, but that purpose is now complete. Cord cutting is spiritual composting, turning old energy, old pain into fertile soil for new growth. So, when we lift the scissors of light, we're not erasing history, we're closing a circuit. We are saying, I keep the wisdom of this, but I release the drain. I need to breathe for a second because this is where we're getting really heavy. We are going to get very personal, and I'm going to give trigger warnings that I do not go into details, but I do refer to some abuse in the following paragraphs. Segments, that's the word I meant. So, let me tell you about the very first cord I ever deliberately cut. The one that bound me to my identity as a United States sailor. I was barely out of childhood when I signed those papers. I was 17, full of fire, hungry for belonging. I needed structure. I needed purpose. I needed something bigger than my incredibly messy past to hold me steady. And the moment I buttoned up that uniform, I thought I had found it. The Navy, the family business, became my North Star. It taught me discipline, grit, and resilience. It taught me how to keep going when every cell in my body wanted to quit. Can do. But it also taught me how to shut down emotion more so than I already did, how to swallow those tears, and how to compartmentalize everything, soft and tender, into teeny tiny, neat, silent little boxes so I could keep marching. Those habits served me great in the service, but outside of it, they became some armor. Heavy ass armor. And eventually, chains. When my enlistment ended, when I was sent home, it felt like the ocean floor had dropped out from under me. My mission was gone. My structure was gone. My shipmates, the people who spoke that secret sailor language, gone. I was utterly adrift in open water with no compass and trying to figure out who the fuck I am now. I was now. I mean, who was I without the uniform, without the mission, without the camaraderie of my shipmates? For so long, I didn't have an answer for that. I introduced myself as a veteran first, a wife and mother second, as if those labels could anchor me to something solid, like my worth depended on my service to everyone but myself. That cord, that identity was wrapped around my solar plexus, thick and blue-black, but absolutely humming with pride and fear in equal measure. I thought it was keeping me safe. In truth, it was keeping me tethered to some waters I'd already crossed and was done with. Through a lot of therapy and the earliest days of my yoga practice, I began to realize something. Discipline and duty were a part of me, yes, but they weren't all of me. The uniform had just been a container. It was honestly never meant to be my soul. One night, I sat cross-legged on my mat, candle flickering, the scent of whatever incense I was burning that night in the air. And, I have a hair. I have a hair that's tickling my eyes under my glasses. One night, I sat cross-legged, candle flickering, the scent of incense in the air, and I closed my eyes, and I saw her. That younger version of me, standing proud in my dress blues. She looked exhausted, but just, radiant. Like she'd been holding the line for both of us for way, way too long. Freaking hair! Where is it? There it is. I whispered to her, "Thank you. You got me through the fire. You did your job, and you did it damn well." And then I saw the cord. It was glowing navy blue. It was tight. It was strong. I took a breath, and I just visualized it dissipating. And I said, I release the identity. I keep the wisdom. Where is that hair? Wait. I felt it. I have a hair, and I can't figure out where it's coming from poking me, but it keeps jabbing me in the eye. So as that cord dissolved into light, she saluted me. Not out of duty, but out of love. About face, walked away. I didn't feel I didn't feel grief. I felt peace. I realized I wasn't losing her. I was integrating her. And that word scares some of my alters. I was no longer former anything. I was becoming something completely new, something whole. In that space of release, something really beautiful began to sprout. The discipline that I had learned in the service became the devotion that I now carry into my spiritual practice. That sense of duty became a sacred purpose. The courage that I had once used to follow orders became the courage to follow my own orders, my own intuition. And that, my witchlings, is paranama, transformation as alchemy. The old fire that burns away that old shape so the new one can emerge. Hello, I am Phoenix made whole. Now, the first cord that I ever cut with that was not it. Hi. I have so many notes here. All right. So, there it is. All right, now, for my fellow veterans and for anyone and everyone out there who is shedding an old skin, an old title, or even an old identity, this is for you. Keep the skill, lose the script. The discipline that once kept you alive can now help you heal. You don't have to stop being strong. You just get to redefine what that strength looks like. Ritualize your release. Frame your patch. Fold the flag. I have one up there. Whisper thank you as you light a candle. Turn your transition into a ceremony. You earned that closure. Rewrite the mission. Protect and serve can evolve into protect my peace and serve my purpose. You don't lose your sense of duty. You simply redirect it towards something that feeds your soul. Find your new crew. Find your new shipmates. Trade your barracks room for a coven. Your unit for a circle. Healing happens in community, not isolation. And we have an affirmation here. I honor the service. I release the shell. I keep the soul of what I learned. This one's getting rough, guys. Might cry here. This one's the hardest. It's the one that connects us to the very beginning, to our mothers. The physical cord. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. The physical cord is cut at birth, the umbilical cord. But the energetic one, that bond typically lasts a lifetime. For some of us, it's a gentle river of love and nourishment. For others, oh dear God, it's a storm tide. Powerful, unpredictable, and more often than not, destructive. Mine was very much the latter. My mother was a tempest. Brilliant, charismatic, and volatile as all fucking hell. Her moods could shift faster than a storm over the sea. Love was a prize you earned and a weapon she wielded brilliantly. I learned very early that affection had conditions, that silence was punishment, and that approval had to be purchased with obedience. As a kid, you adapt. You shapeshift to survive. You learn the choreography of staying safe. So, I became the good girl, the peacemaker, the fixer. When she raged, I soothed. When she withdrew, I performed. If I can be mommy's good little girl, maybe mommy will love me. And those habits those survival skills, oh yeah, they grew up right alongside me. They have followed me into adulthood like invisible ghosts, whispering, if you just try harder, maybe this time she'll love you, right? Even after I built a family of my own, I kept answering her calls. You know, I lived with her. I supported her. I kept rearranging my life to keep her happy, always hoping that maybe this time we'd finally be okay. We could cohabitate comfortably. But no matter what I gave, no matter what I did, it was never enough. What I got back? Guilt, manipulation, conditional love, the kind that vanishes the second you don't do exactly what they want. And then the moment you look them in the eyes and say, no. And then came one Christmas. It was the first Christmas I was together with the man behind the curtain. One of those classic ultimatums that narcissistic mothers specialize in. The kind that forces you to choose between peace and their approval. The old programming kicked in pretty immediately. Panic, guilt, that familiar ache in my chest and the knot in my stomach. The terrified little girl inside me started scrambling, desperate to earn her affection, desperate to make it right. But then something ancient woke up inside me. It was fierce, primal, and protective. The part of me that was mother, not daughter. The wolf standing between her cubs and that storm. I thought about my children, my beautiful, innocent, amazing children that she had already done damage to, and realized that my job was no longer to appease her anymore. My job at that point was to protect them and to protect me. I remember I had a death grip on that phone. The ultimatum was, it's either just you and the kids or it's no one. And my voice came out calm. Too calm. I said, fine, we won't be there. And I clicked the phone shut. I waited for the shoe to drop. I waited for the explosion, the screaming phone call, the backlash. But nothing came. For the first time in my life, she had no power over me. And that silence, oh, that blessed but terrifying silence, that was the sound of my first clean cut. That was the very first snip of those scissors. Of course, it didn't heal overnight. That cord was very thick, very barbed, and had wrapped around my heart for 35 plus years. It took years of therapy, of ritual, of curling up in the fetal position on the bed with the dog sticking his tongue up my nose, bawling and breathing through that pain. Cutting it didn't mean I stopped loving her. What it meant was I stopped letting her define what love was supposed to look like. It meant learning to reparent myself, to become the safe harbor I had never known. It meant learning that peace is not earned through submission or suffering. It meant forgiving myself for all the years and all the times I kept going back, thinking maybe this time it'll be different. Maybe she'll love me. Maybe. Yeah, maybe never happened. When the day finally came to perform that ritual, I was so ready. Candles lit, the bowl of salt water in front of me, the air very thick with incense and release. I closed my eyes. I felt that cord in my chest like a knot of lightning. And I whispered, I forgive what I cannot change. I release what I cannot carry. And then something shifted. The air in the room, it changed. Like the pressure had finally equalized. And it was like for the very first time in my life, I could take a deep breath. The hum of anxiety that had lived under my skin since toddlerhood went silent. In that silence, though, something amazing rose up. My own voice. Steady, compassionate. Me, mine. My affirmation here is I am both the child who needed protection and the adult who provides it. Same. All right. All right, y'all. For anyone else walking this path, this healing path, whether your mother is still in your life or long since gone, I really want you to know you are so not alone. I founded the Shitty Moms Club for a reason. This wound is ancient. It runs through lineages, but it can be healed. It can be transmuted. Here's something that has helped me and something I have shared with my students and clients. First, write those letters that you're never going to send. One for the rage, uncensored, raw, the truth that you swallowed to survive. And then one for grief, for the love you needed but you never got. One for gratitude, if you can find even a glimmer of it, not for the harm, but for the lessons that shaped your strength. Then, burn them or bury them. Let the earth or the smoke carry the story away so that it no longer has to live in your body. Remother yourself. Every single day, ask gently, what does the little one inside me need right now? And then give it to them. Maybe it's a snack. Maybe, it's a nap. Maybe it's a long, fierce hug. Maybe, and this is the one that I needed, maybe it's the ability to say no without apology. All right. Now, we're going to understand our patterns. Because here's the thing, my witchlings, and I say this with so much love and compassion. We repeat what's unhealed. We are drawn to the familiar, even when the familiar hurts. The work isn't just avoiding toxic people, it's healing that magnet inside of us that keeps calling them in. For the longest time, I genuinely thought healing meant changing my surroundings, cutting the cord, leaving the person, blocking the number, blocking their everywhere, right? And while all of that does matter, it's only half the spell. The deeper magic is looking inward and asking the tough questions. What part of me still believes this chaos is love? What pain inside me feels soothed by this dysfunction? And what lesson do I get to keep, and what wound am I finally ready to release? Because after every heartbreak, I have lived, my partner picker was severely broken, and I have had so much heartbreak. After every heartbreak, I began to ask these questions, and slowly but surely the pattern started to reveal itself, the sacred geometry of my own wounding. Every cord that I cut exposed another layer beneath. The little girl who mistook intensity okay. Every cord I cut exposed another layer. The little girl who mistook intensity for importance and control for care. Every time I released one of those energetic old threads, I didn't just let go of a person. I called another lost piece of myself home. And here is something nobody tells you about trauma bonds. It doesn't always look like victory laps or fireworks. What the fluff? See, my notes are all out of whack. So let's say this. Sometimes freedom looks like a quiet morning where nothing hurts. Sometimes it feels like boredom, you know, the kind that unnerves you because you've been living so long inside of that chaos, that storm. Don't mistake calm for emptiness. That stillness you're hearing, that's your nervous system exhaling. That is the sound of safety returning to your body. That's peace. Soft, steady, sacred peace. And it's yours now. And now, here's another cord that I have cut, and it's one that nobody prepares you for, my witchlings. The end of a friendship. There is no ritual for this. No casseroles dropped off at the door. No breakup playlist that says, "Hey, I just lost my best friend." But the grief, oh honey, it is so real, and sometimes that grief cuts deeper than relationships and romance. I had a friend of damn near 30 years, and we ended up going our separate ways. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was necessary. It was utterly and completely necessary. And so I did something to her that I have never done before. I just, poof, ghosted her. No fight. No explanation, because I knew if I tried to talk about it, it wasn't going to work. And so I did what I had to do because I could not live like that anymore. She reacted exactly the way I expected. So, you know, but walking away from that friendship was one of the hardest things in the world. I mourned that loss like a death, because it was. It was the death of an era, of a language that only we spoke, of a bond I genuinely thought was unbreakable. And it left ghosts everywhere. Memories that just destroyed me. For months, I replayed every conversation, every silence, every what if, until one night, in meditation, her face popped into mind, and instead of rage or grief, I just felt tired. That bone deep tired. I whispered to myself, I can't carry this anymore. And that's when it hit me like a gust of wind. I wasn't holding her anymore. I was holding the memory of who she used to be and who I knew she could be. I was clinging to a ghost. So I did what I always do when I need to heal. Wrote my letters. The first one was sharp, honest, full of all of the anger, the betrayal, and the heartbreak that I had been just swallowing. And the second, gratitude. And then I burned them. The next morning, I felt light. Still sad, still tender, but much clearer than I had in years. And that, my friends, that's the real magic. All right, so it's hard. So let's see. My notes are so disorganized. This is what happens when Di makes her notes at 3 o'clock in the morning. There we are. All right. So, every cord that I have cut has been a teacher in disguise. The Navy taught me that my identity isn't a uniform, it's an essence. My incubator taught me that love without respect is not love at all, it is control. My exes taught me that my light is not up for negotiation. And my best friend taught me that not all forever is meant to last. Each one of them, every story, every heartbreak, every version of me that had to die so that I could live, whispered the same truth in just a different language. Releasing a cord does not burn your past. It stops your past from burning you. This is sacred grief work, witchlings. It's shadow work with scissors. It's tender, it's messy, it's transformative magic. Cord cutting asks uncomfortable questions, the kind that demand courage more than certainty. What hook in me allowed this cord to take hold? What wound did it attach to? What did I mistake for love or safety or belonging? And when we answer honestly, when we stop blaming and start understanding, the act of release becomes something deeper than escape. It becomes alchemy. We stop cutting cords just to stop the pain and start cutting them to reclaim our wholeness. That's the real paranama. Transformation as alchemy. The cord dissolves and in its place grows wisdom, compassion, clarity. You start to see how every ending softened you enough to love better next time. How every letting go created space for your next becoming. It's the paradox of the sacred spiral. Shedding, returning, renewing, every death feeding the next rebirth. So imagine yourself now as a great tree, ancient, strong, deeply rooted. You've weathered storms, you've dropped old leaves, lost a few branches here and there, survived lightning strikes that could easily have split you in two. But deep below your roots, your healthy cords reach into the cool, clear waters of truth. And every cut above ground, every pruning of what no longer serves has made room for new light to reach your heartwood. Breathe that image in. Let it settle into your bones. You are still growing. You are still becoming. You are still learning to bloom in your own time, in your own wild way. Tonight, witchlings, may every cord you have the courage to cut become a seed of wisdom in the garden of your soul. May every painful goodbye open the door to your next, most authentic becoming. May you reclaim every lost spark of power and call it home to your heart where it has always belonged. And may you always remember, your energy is sacred. Your heart is your own. And your brilliant, beautiful light can never, ever be dimmed by the shadows of your past. And on that note, my witchlings, go out and spread love, spread joy, and spread kindness, because there's already enough darkness in this world. Let's each be beacons of light and hope for ourselves and for each other. Let your loved ones know that you love them beyond words. You do not know how long you have with them. And always, always remember, you are loved. You are wanted. You are needed, and you do have a purpose. Sorry, wanted is my coffee shop. And you do have a purpose here, my loves. I will see you next time. Love you to bits. Namaste, witchlings.